Welcome back, my friends. This is episode 52 of Hack Your Thoughts and part 6 of our Unshaken series. If you've been walking with us these past few weeks, you know we've been really peeling back those layers. We named the weight of pretending, broke the myth of self sufficiency, and stepped into that radical act of asking for help. Last week in episode 51, I asked a question we rarely ask ourselves out loud. We ask this to everybody else but ourselves. What do you really need right now? I mean, think about it. Go to the mirror and ask yourself, what do you really need right now? How often do we do that? No audience, no performance, just the truth. So last week it was a quiet one, but sometimes the quiet ones hit the deepest. Today we're continuing the journey with something even more tender. Because when the silence breaks and when the armor drops, a deeper question rises to the surface. What are we so afraid of? What are we so afraid of? Not just the fear of failure or being seen or getting it wrong. Sometimes we're afraid of our own power, our softness, our truth. Because, when we stop performing, we come face to face with the one person we've spent the most time avoiding, and that's ourselves. We always have an answer, a solution for everybody else. We can give them advice and counsel and tell everybody else exactly what they can do to make their life right. But when we come face to face with ourselves, we avoid it. So today I'm joined by two extraordinary leaders and trusted voices, Dr. Yubilis Tility and Coach Steve Tulowitsky. They walked through fear. They sat with the questions and they've each done the deep work of coming home to themselves. So I'm really honored to have them back for this next layer in the conversation. But before we dive into that, let's take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Once again, this is episode 52 of Hack Our Thoughts, part 6 of our Unshaken series. And today we're talking about what are we so afraid of? If you've been following us, please go ahead and drop a comment, or if you're not following us, please click follow. And if you know of someone that this is going to really be a help to, please invite them to join as well. So, today we have with us Dr. Yubilis Timothy, who's my brother and fondly known and called Yubi, and Steve, my very close friend and brother in the United States. So we have the both of them right here in the studio with us to reflect for a moment on last week's episode. What do we really need? So what stands out to you, to the both of you, about that invitation to slow down and just ask ourselves that question?
I think Steve, we go first.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask you who starts. Who needs to go first? The thing that occurs to me, Chloe, when you say what do you really need, the first question that comes up is which you? I wonder who I'm asking. There are all kinds of parts of me, and they all different roles that I play, and they likely have different needs. And that confusion alone is maybe a reason that we don't ask, that I don't ask. Yeah, you told me once, fairly recently, that this idea of purpose, that we have it all wrong. That we have this feeling like we have to have one purpose in life. My purpose statement, which I now call my mission statement because of our conversation, is to shepherd the coaching revolution that leads to the rise of authenticity. I say, yeah, that's great when I'm coaching or in certain aspects of my life. But if I'm washing my car or if I'm having dinner with my wife, it's not about shepherding the coaching revolution. So there's different purposes at different moments.
Yeah.
And so I think there are different needs for different parts of myself, different moments.
Yeah.
But I do think that it dovetails into fear, into the topic today of fear.
Yeah.
Because I believe that the opposite of love is fear, or fear is the opposite of love. So I think what I really need is connection. All these questions and all these things. When I'm really struggling in life, I need connection with other people.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And that is real. We are social butterflies, I'm going to say. Butterflies.
I used to be a social caterpillar.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and we all want to feel connected to something. And when we connect it with others, then we feel like we're part of a larger world than just our own world. Yubi, what about you?
I think it's trying to control the noise that is happening in your head at all times. And when I mean noise, is everything else other than what you're supposed to be doing at that moment. That noise overrides almost everything and gets in your way. And you start in your mind, start reliving situations or talking to yourself, without moving your lips, or sometimes by speaking out loudly, even in public, because the noise is there all the time. Whatever it is, we keep reliving a thing, a moment or a situation. And we try not to, because we now know that every time you think about something, the more you think about it, the more it gets engraved inside your neurons and becomes part of your world, becomes part of your real world. And trying to get rid of that, get rid of the noise. And we live in a time where information is easy. We are in contact with the world, the whole world, in a fraction of a second. And everything that we do is controlled by our past because of the algorithms that are in all the devices that we use, making sure we stay in the past. And so it's very, very difficult to get rid of the noise. But you got to take time, and you got to breathe, and you got to understand, what is it I would need to do now? And it's even, as somebody who does a lot of important things at that moment, you have to refocus, because, do I need to do this? Why am I doing this? Isn't there a better way? Those little things that get in the way when you're supposed to be doing something important.
Yeah. Funny you should say the noise that's happening in your head, and Steve, when you talk about the different parts of you, and something came to me about something that I do. Whenever I'm packing a bag to go, when I'm taking, gone on flights almost every other week, whenever I pack, I talk out loud. Chloe, what do you need? So are you going to need this here? Are you going to need? And I'm talking out loud, because that's the only way I can get to grips to what do I need. Okay, on day one, I'm going to use that. On day two, I'm going to do. So with my clothing, it's so easy to say, what do I need? But when it comes to the matter of the heart and the mind, then, not being able to apply that simple thing is sometimes, it gets us away from ourselves. And so we, coming to our topic for today, why are we so afraid? What are we so afraid of? I spoke at a women's conference, about a week ago, and for the Q&A, one of the questions was, what is fear? Or, what do we fear? And there were so many different answers that came up. And my response is, we fear ourselves. We don't know who we are. We're still trying to figure out who we are. Can we do this? Can we not do this? Am I able? How did I come across? It's like, who am I? I don't know. So, and that kind of just dropped in me, and a whole lot of things happened after that that brought that home. So here's a question for the both of you. What is fear really? What have you come to understand about the nature of fear in your own life? You really want to go?
Okay. It is something that you cannot control, that's disdainful, that is unpleasant, normally linked to a past memory. It is something that's overwhelming, that affects your very, very being. And at that moment, it's also life saving, and at the same time, it's life threatening, um, because it can either uplift you and make you go forward and rise to above the situation, or it can hold you back and make you stagnant and basically diminish everything that you have that is you. So fear is this that feeling of complete overwhelmed inability to actually do anything, and that's very, very scary.
Yeah. Steve?
Yeah. Fear is also an emotion. It's a strong negative emotion, high vibration, negative quality. And I believe it's a message from above. It's a message from the universe. And often it's a wake-up call. Because often, I know I am still these days, and there was a period of my life where I was in almost permanent status of successful human zombie. That's what I call it. Look successful from the outside, but you're somehow just walking around chasing the next promotion without really being there. And in that state, you need to be awakened. And for me, what woke me up, I think, is a fear that I wasn't going to be the father that I wanted to be. We had a daughter on the way, and I was on this path. And that drive, that sense of connection and purpose, love for Zoe, who was going to be coming, was enough to wake me up and make a change in what I was doing. So and it's a message from the universe. It shows up in your emotional state, and you do with it what you can. Sometimes you get paralyzed and you freeze, or they say silence or violence can be your reaction to fear. And sometimes maybe if you've had enough suffering and learned the lessons that are intended from this message, you learn to quickly regroup yourself, neutralize the fear, and get back to what you were doing that is important for the people you're around.
Yeah. Fear isn't always the villain. Sometimes it's protection. Like, Yubi was saying earlier on, saving or threatening. And, it's that voice of an old version of us trying to keep safe. It's that wake up call. It is that wake up call. Am I going to be a good father? Am I going to show up the way for my children? So I set them up for success. Oh, I'm always there. So there's so many things that we fear. So many things, and we're not even aware of it.
I think I feel like when you talk about a specific episode of fear, and I'm with Steve, when my daughter Taraji was born, at my firstborn child, it was the most fearful point of my life. I was there in that delivery room, and I was so scared that there's a new life that's coming in, and I have to be in charge of that. I have to look after this life. It's not just about me anymore. It is somebody that I have to take care of, and I don't know what to do. How do you do it? And all these questions are going into your mind at that point. Because really, especially for men, after dealing with this sort of fear of not knowing, of being helpless, when there is this life, and it is, I have the duty to look after this life and feed it and uplift this person, this human being. It's another human being. It's not a car. It's not an inanimate object, but a human being that has been entrusted into your hands now. And there you are standing, holding this baby, and you know what to do. You know, it is very fearful. But again, how we overcome that moment.
I mean, I've heard you both say that fear is related to I don't know. I don't know what to do. And so this just flashed for me a recent instance of really being terrified in a kind of, safe, silly situation. But both Celine and I, my wife and I, were terrified. We're trying to furnish our house. You know, we moved here just last year and we found this neat antique wardrobe on Facebook Marketplace. We wanted to put in Zoe's room, and it was in a nearby town. It was in the winter, and we had to rent a U-Haul truck for it. So we agreed, and then as the day came that we're picking it up, a text arrives from the seller, and they say, "Well, sometimes if it's snowy, our driveway can be a little tricky. You might want to make sure the U-Haul truck has new tires." So we pick up the truck and we tell them it's going to be tricky. They upgrade our truck to a brand new one, has dual wheels and whatever. And we're getting there, and I'm driving on this country road, and I say, "Man, I hope it's not up one of these hills." And of course, it was up one of these hills with a blacktop driveway, that is already slippery just in the water. So we're driving up there, and it has like a dog leg to the left, and the truck just starts spinning about 2/3 of the way up, and I just put it in park. I said, "I guess that's as far as we're gonna go." And so the guy comes out, and we load this. We had to walk through the grass because the driveway was too slippery even to walk on. And somehow we got it all in the truck. And I'm like, I'm kind of terrified to go back down this hill now. And sure enough, I start going down, and the truck just is sliding into their grass and then up against the trees and the rocks. And I'm sitting there, wheel turn this way, hitting the gas. The truck should be going to the right, and it's sliding to the left. And I just say, "I don't know what to do. What do I do? Celine, what do I do?" And there's really not necessarily fear for our life, but fear for the cost of this truck damaging their trees, the looking and feeling stupid. All of those things came in. So we asked for help. We asked the guy for help. Turns out he used to install cabinets when he was a youngster. So he's like, "I'm a master with these trucks." And he somehow dumped a bag of salt there and gunned it and punched it, and he got it all out. And he said, "Usually the semis go off the other side of the driveway." So I don't know. There was some kind of adventure in that, but it was for a whole day. I would say we were shaking and sort of traumatized, which is I think fear is illogical.
Yeah. It makes me think that fear often wears disguises. We don't know it's there, but it's there. It's lurking. Whatever it is. Like, for example, what are you fearful of when you were fearful of veering off the road, the truck, you had Celine, your kids were waiting.
Yeah.
There were so many different moving parts to this, and so where is the fear coming from? Why is it there? Why are we so afraid? Why are we so afraid? You've driven so many times in bad weather, I'm sure. May not have been sliding here and there, but
not on that driveway. Yeah.
But there's always something inside us that we want to anchor in and say, "I believe in you." So, but you want to be able to say to yourself, "Yubi, I believe in you." Steve, you want to be able to say, "Steve, I believe in you. Because when we believe in ourselves, then fear has to leave. Because you cannot believe and have fear at the same time.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So as I said that, what came up for the both of you?
I think it's the possibility of opportunity. At that moment, how does one navigate oneself through this very, very moment of feeling claustrophobic or being under a situation where you don't know what to do and what to. So look at how I'm stuck, or what are the opportunities. I think the line that Steve said, well, the other guys normally the bigger trucks coming on the other side. It is, it sounds so simple at that time, but when you're going through it, it's really overwhelming. And how do we rise above that? How do we look at the ability for us to rise above that situation and look for opportunities to be creative? We are creative beings, and to be able to stop, breathe, think, understand, and say, how do I now go forward? What is my next step, physical step forward? And when we think in the physical rather than in the mental, it always overrides us, because that's when it can allow us to get all the information from our past and our memories, and our need to be successful and not be a failure overwhelms us. But to say physically now, what is my next step forward? How do and it's just a step-by-step physical actions that we need to do to override that inability.
Yeah. So I want to ask this question here. When we avoid facing ourselves, what do you think we're really afraid of?
We
Is it
avoid.
shame? Is it power? Is it vulnerability? Is it change?
Yeah, I'm still thinking about that last question you asked about. You can't have fear and believe
Yeah.
in yourself at the same time. I'm not sure that I believe that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe you can't have fear and fully unconditionally love yourself at the same time. But unconditional love seems to say that no matter what happens, it's okay. And so maybe there is, I don't know, believe is somehow mental, as you were talking, mental feeling, and love is above all of that, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so the absence of love is fear. And so to take it to this question of when I feel like I can't face myself, I think the fear is that this does apply to me, and I think it applies in general. There's a deep fear that I'm nobody. I can't even drive a truck, pick up this thing, or I can't say hi to that person, ask them to play pickleball, or what. All these moments, all throughout the day, there is this thought that's always available that I can't do that. I'm not good enough. I'm nobody. They won't accept me. I'll be wrong, and if I'm wrong, then I'm nobody. I just keep coming back to that. This idea of being nobody. And even with that, there's a knowing that, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
The freedom of being nobody.
Yeah. And then here, we have limiting beliefs. Beliefs that limit us. And we have beliefs that set us free. One of the reasons why we may fear a particular thing, like I know for many years, I feared speaking up because I didn't know what would happen. I believed that if I spoke up, I'd be screamed at. I believed that. That was a limiting belief. But I needed to change that to a belief that was free. So when I say you cannot believe, I mean, we cannot believe that we are whole and have fear at the same time. That is hard to do. Because when the fear means I have that limiting belief. I'm fearing something. What is the thing that I'm fearing? Even thinking about being a father, I fear that I may not. This feeling terrifies me. I just want to take care. I want to do that. But when we believe that I can take care, there is nothing going to stop me.
So I'm curious what you both think, how this applies to something that Yubi mentioned, claustrophobia or any sort of phobia, fear of heights. Is that a lack of belief? Is that we don't love ourselves, or is there something else going on there?
Well, let's talk about that. Say claustrophobia, when we are in tight spaces. I can share something. When I'm in an elevator and it is too packed, I will not go in because I can't breathe. I feel claustrophobic, and that comes from something that happened to me when I was a little girl. I locked myself in I thought I was a bad girl, and I locked myself in this cupboard, and I immediately that's where it comes from, because there was fear that was instilled in me because of something that happened. So it almost like as though you can always trace everything back to something. Earlier, when we first started, you were talking about the past. We always, we cannot, no, there's no control. Every incident is linked to a past memory.
So fear is an algorithm.
Not really. I think everything that we go through, right, we have a memory of, and we process that memory and we store it away. But with some people, there are other things attached to it. And sometimes the thing that is attached to the memory is fear. What was it? What did I feel at that moment when I went through that episode or that time? And we forget the memory, but we remember the fear. And that overwhelms us. And then you have to go back now and try and find it. Like Chloe had to think about going back and thinking about, when I was locked in that cupboard, a lot of the things that have happened in the past. Basically, it is an algorithm and we are governed by our past. But how do we deal with that? Do we have the ability to overcome fear? Or are we suffer in a situation of dysregulation of fear? We do not have that ability, and so we have the trauma we carry within us all the time, and we don't have to have real triggers to bring that fear back. Just a group of people in an elevator, we've got walls that are enclosing around them is enough to trigger the fear of that was linked to that time of being in the cupboard, and all the other emotions that were attached to Chloe's action to go into that cupboard are then now becoming real, and they are real. We feel them, we experience them. I think Alexander the Great, and I've got to remember this now. Alexander the Great said, "Man's immortality is not to live forever, for that is born out of fear. Every moment free of fear makes man immortal." And I sort of paraphrase that a little bit, but I think you get the gist what Alexander the Great was trying to say, that our ability, we want to live forever, this immortality, but it's about we are actually scared of death.
So can I throw a span in the works here? So let's see what comes up, where we go with this here. What about fear of success?
Yeah, it's real. It's yeah.
Why would people fear success? Because that feels like a good thing.
Again, it depends on your past. In my opinion, it's you would have been successful in doing something in the past, but that opened doors to other corridors which you couldn't control, which led you down paths that you didn't want to go down. Greed, um, arrogance, pride. These are the simple ones that we talk about, this sort of deadly sins, but that just that it was linked to a bad marriage or a bad relationship, or which has nothing to do with the success, but one links it, or a failure in something else which is linked to that success, and so we tend, no, I can't. If I become successful, then I will do this or I'll do that, or I did that before and look what had happened to me. And so we bring in the past again. Our algorithms control us.
That's why we have to hack our thoughts.
Mm.
Yes.
Steve, what when you think about fear of success?
I wonder if we have a good definition of success. Fear is always coming back to, am I right? Is that the success that I really want or deserve or can handle? My own personal definition of success is an equation. I call it the success equation. Success equals joy divided by pain. So if what I'm doing is creating more joy than it is pain, I'll be honest, I was tired tonight, and so the idea of joining the call had some thoughts of pain in it. Man, it would just be easier to shut my eyes on the bed and go to sleep now. And of course, now that we're here, it's generating joy. So this is a successful mission. So I don't have fear that I'll have more joy than pain in the things that I do. So I think it's maybe the real fear of success is that I don't know what success is and if I want it. Often success comes with fame. We all might want to be famous, but nobody wants to go to a restaurant and be hassled and you can't order your food and and all of that. I had a roommate in Spain who passed up promotion after promotion after promotion. And I said, why are you doing this? He says, well, they're going to make me work harder. I like my life as it is. I don't want more responsibility. This is good.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's maybe some fear of that. If I'm successful, I'll have to be even more successful tomorrow because our whole society is built on growing GDP and growth of company, and you need more customers and you need more ideas. You need to write another book. So it could also be the fear of more burden without any guarantee of more joy than pain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so what? Let me ask this question: what helps you feel safe enough to be honest with yourself?
Just repeat that again.
What helps you to feel safe enough to be honest with yourself? In other words, being able to say, I do fear that. And I wonder why I fear that. And then doing the work to understand why that fear is there. Because until we understand why it's there, we can't do anything about it.
I think for me, in my experience, it comes when there is someone, when I have a relationship that I can lean into, and someone else is there who really knows how to listen and ask the right questions. And it's almost like the relationship makes me feel safe enough. And that there's someone listening who might know more than I do, who might have some answers that I don't, that I can actually then be honest. Because I could walk around packing my suitcase saying, okay, Tuesday, I need underwear, you know, just talking to myself aloud. And I can talk to myself aloud about these things that are going on in my life. And when I'm alone, it tends to be a negative spiral. It doesn't tend to be uplifting. I might need to do, as Yubi said a few times, stop, breathe, and connect with something else. I might listen to a book or see a poem or take a walk in nature or something. But then I've got to talk to someone else to be witnessed. And then I can be more honest.
Yeah. So before Yubi responds, I want to pick up on something you said. How do we manage that fear when we are alone? If there was nobody, because I'm sure there's a lot of people listening that are alone right now. You know, so how do we manage that when we can't? And also, Steve, when we at the start of the conversation, you talked about connection. When we're not connected, how are we managing that? How can we start feeling safe when we need that and we can't get it?
Yeah. The most obvious connection is with other people, other human beings, or other sentient beings. Could be Apollo, the dog, or our cats, or, you know. But also, I believe ideas, concepts, places, emotions, any of your senses, you can find connection in that as well. I'm sure, you know, if I'm playing pickleball, or people love to cook, or some activity that you love where you get into a state of flow, like Yubi has said, what I really need is to clear my mind. Well, when you get in connection with some activity that you really love, that's all there is. So I almost forgot the question because I got in flow with my.
Yes. You could, but it's perfect response. Yubi, what about you?
And I think that just from my behavior, that I tend to be fearless in almost everything that I do. I do always weigh up all the cons and the pros and the cons and the pros, and may procrastinate a bit on doing something, but then I will end up doing it, and because I have to do it. And yes, this might be the difficult things to do, or I might fail. And yes, I think I've learned to embrace failure. And say, yes, I will fail, and there's always a possibility I will fail, but I will learn from my failure, and and then I tend to, and I think I mentioned it the last time, that I go down rabbit holes like Alice, and never knowing what you're going to find on the other side, all the Mad Hatters and all the madness inside my head most of the time, and my head is very busy, and yes, I do tend to take chances. And throughout life, that's all it is. It is about being able to say, no, I'm going to chance it. Again, to quote another famous gladiator, that's Genghis Khan, if you're afraid, don't do it. But if you're going to do it, don't be afraid.
I like that.
And so I tend to embrace that sort of thinking of I'm going to, yes, there's possibility that things can go wrong. And Chloe, I cracked my head and, ruptured my Achilles and do all sorts of weird things. But, do it. And yes, there's consequences. Life is full of consequences, but, and again, it's, in life, there are only choices, and then you learn to live with your choices that you make, whether it's good or bad. And if you fall, you sit there and lick your wounds, and then you get up and you start again and fall again.
I use a Band-Aid, but
yeah, So. And that's what it is, and I think COVID has given us an extra spray of alcohol, so it, every single thing that happens to us. I mean, if you look at the pandemic, what it did to us. I mean, how fearful that was. That the isolation of not knowing. When we had that original lockdown, think about it, and they kept extending it, and you had no idea that whether we'll ever get back to what was normal, and we never have got back to what was normal. But that fear that we all went through of not knowing, and then when people started dying, and it was, am I ready? What happens if it happens to me? And so it's anything that will hold us back tends to become a fear in our lives, and but we've got to overcome it. And I know it's easy to say yes. Well, just get up and go and do it, because I don't know what the other person's footsteps are in, and we never know what others are going through, and what they had gone through. But if you want to change, you got to get up. Like I said, lick your wounds and say, this happened to me. It's okay to fail. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what others say, because it's my life, and I'm accountable for it, and nobody else is. And they can say whatever they want to, and I will do what I need to do. I will be strong, stand up, and face my challenges, and every day, and sing as you do it. Whistle, dance. I'll never forget that movie Zoba the Greek, and Anthony Quinn says when his son died, he danced, and everybody thought he was mad, but he said, and the lines was very important. He says, "You didn't know the pain that I was going through, and dancing was the only way I could relieve it." And the character, I mean, it was the character that was created, but that's real. Sometimes you have to do things that are outside the normal. Sometimes may not be acceptable to everybody, or your family, or your friends, or your colleagues at work, but you need to rise.
Yeah. So, I'm from the both of you all spoke such wisdom. And coming back to the dance is similar to the pickleball, when there is that fear, that placing of isolation, fear of isolation. How do you stay connected with yourself? Whether that's pickleball, whether that's dance, and something else that Yubi, that I heard you say was embracing fear, embracing failure. How do we normalize failure? It's okay to fail. If we understand, or if we come to grips with it, it's okay to fail, then that becomes part of life. Because we're failing all the time. We're failing every day with something, But understanding, instead of self-judging. The other thing that I heard was, it doesn't matter what others say. We are we live our life so guided by what everybody else thinks versus what do I think and what do I want. Coming back to last week's episode, what do I really need? What do I really need versus what does people around me want from me? How do they want me to be? How does my team at work want me to be? How does my boss want me to be? How does my family want me to be? So we always, and again, that's without us thinking, we actually have a fear. I have to be this way now. I have to be a certain way. So we move further and further away from what do I really want? What do I really want? And why am I so afraid? Two such simple questions, but imagine if we were self-coaching ourselves every day. Imagine if we were doing that kind of reflection and that deep work every day. Then that's the way we're going to have to overcome. So being able to create safety inside of us is, what I'm hearing from both of you, everything that you all shared.
Yeah, I think there's something to this idea of failure and embracing failure. As you said, Chloe, it is an absolute part of life. The image I had was like failure is akin to exhaling. Like we can't go through life just inhaling. And why would I be afraid of exhaling? Uh, it's the only way that we learn. No one has ever taken a step without not being able to take a step before. Um, the other thing I've been thinking about with fear is that it is giving you access to like some super intelligence or some super human. If you're afraid enough, you may, in fact, I think the body will actually cut off blood to your prefrontal cortex. So forget about thinking. You get in touch with your animal instincts, and enough fear will actually override weaker fears. A fear of survival, or if something is happening to someone I love or someone in my family, I will become an unrecognizable version of myself. I may become an Incredible Hulk, or do things that I would never otherwise dare to do to rise to the moment. And there's a really cool book by Gavin DeBucker called The Gift of Fear. I read it because something on there, it said it's actually a book about intuition. And he starts with a story. He's a high profile security provider for like Jeff Bezos and people who really need a lot of security. And he starts the book with a story of a woman who, against her best interest, let someone help her take groceries into her apartment complex. She knew something was off, but she was afraid of looking impolite or something. And it turned out that once he put the groceries down on the kitchen counter, he attacked her, and he had very bad intentions, and he was going to kill her. And somehow, when he left the room, she knew exactly what was going to happen, and without thinking, stood up and walked right behind him down the hall and escaped her apartment and went to the neighbors, and she survived the incident. And as he unpacked that with her, he said, well, how did you know he was going to the kitchen to get a knife? I think was the story. And as he was sitting there with Gavin unpacking it, he said, well, I saw him when he walked out the room, glance at the window, and he saw the window was open. And then I noticed that he turned up the radio just a little bit. So there's this supercomputer processing. I know exactly what he's doing because of these things that I'm not really conscious of. But fear, gave her access to that.
Yeah. And earlier on, when we first started, you did say it is life-saving or life.
Yes.
So we need fear in our lives, because fear nudges us to the next version of what we can be. Otherwise, life would be pretty boring. It would be pretty boring. It would be colorless.
Going through life without exhaling would be quite boring.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Probably short. It would probably be quite short, actually. We would just atrophy.
Yeah. So, to all of you out there listening, if fear has been whispering to you, if it's stuck in the tension between who you've been, who you're becoming, let me say this here. Fear is not your flaw. Fear is not something you need to be afraid of. It's just a sign that you're on the edge of something meaningful. Something wonderful is around the bend. And belief is built on these small daily choices to show up for yourself with love. So a thought hack that I thought about today was I rebuild trust in myself through self-love and self-kindness, because I have to trust me. I forget that I have to trust me. I worry about who I'm not trusting and how often we don't trust ourselves. We think about, that person, I don't trust them. But then you look in the mirror and you ask, do I trust me? And is that fear driven? So, so let that be the compass, not pressure, not performance, not just presence and love. Um, and you, be Steve, any closing thoughts before we wrap up?
I
I know
think
Yubi's
that
going to inspire me, so you go first.
now the pressure is on. Now the fear builds up. How do I overcome? What do I say? Will I fail? Will I make a mistake and say the wrong words and will not be inspiring enough for Steve, or will I rise above it? And I don't know. It depends what I say, and I think that's what I'm just saying now is
Yeah.
what goes through our minds. Is that will I be a failure? Will I succeed? Can I overcome this? What will people think? And that's the last point is very, very important. What will people think?
Mhm.
You have a choice to make, and you make it. Otherwise, the rest of our lives we will regret it. And the worst is to sit there as an old person saying, "If only, if only, if only."
Mm.
And that's the worst thing that anyone could ever say. If only.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you went there of people's opinions, because I wanted to talk about FOPO, fear of people's opinions. Of course, FOMO is pretty well known now, fear of missing out. And at the core of that, I think the fear under FOMO is actually FOPO. We are afraid of what people will think if we weren't there, if we miss out. And I'm not sure the antidote to FOPO yet, but the antidote to FOMO is JOMO, which is the joy of missing out. Because you've chosen for yourself, you've chosen wisely, you've chosen connection, you've chosen love, and you've embraced the prospect of failure. This definition of failure probably also depends heavily on people's opinions or what we perceive they are. So maybe that's my final thought is to get intimate with FOPO and what role it plays in your life. There's a hack thought there, which must be the antidote, the thought hack.
Yeah.
It'll be in Chloe's book, I'm sure.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, that's powerful. I love what both of you said. Yubi, you kind of just started talking, and you talked yourself into what you needed to share, which was so being honest. You shared your thoughts, and you were honest, and you took the fear just by sharing it. You took the fear out of it, and walked right into what it should be. And Steve, you did what you naturally do, the FOMO, just all just antidotes are in the mnemonics that you create. Because that's where all your antidotes are. It comes in forms of your mnemonics, and you know it. So whatever, everybody listening out there, whatever works for you, whether it is just speaking up, and whatever's on your mind, just putting it out there, whether it is that niche of yours or that special skill or expertise or what you're great at. And I know Steve's greater power is the building mnemonics. But if that's the go-to place to release the fear, then do whatever works for you. Yubi and Steve, thank you for an amazing conversation. Next week, we're going even deeper, because fear doesn't just whisper you're not enough. Sometimes it says, what if you finally let go and everything falls apart? What if you stop performing and no one stays? What if you succeed and you still feel empty? Right. So I'm going to call this the fear beneath the fear. And if that stirs something in you, everyone out listening, you're not alone. We'll meet you right here next week. But until then, walk gently. You're not what you're afraid of. You're who you're becoming. Have a great week. Thank you, Yubi. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chloe.
Thank you.
Take care.